Hello, and welcome back to Book Talk. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this episode where I get to introduce you to my friends. Now, some of you have already met Tricia Goyer because she's been on before, but I also get to introduce you to Christen and Krumm, who you may not have met before, but she has been the behind the scenes magic of this podcast since the beginning, and also to Elly Grace. And I'm just delighted to have all of them here because they're going to talk about their brand new series with Sunrise, and it's Amish fiction. And like many of the Sunrise series, it's springboarding off of one of Tricia's beloved Montana Amish series. But as we get started, I want you all just take a moment and introduce yourselves. And Elly, we're going to start with you because you're the one that most people probably don't know yet. So Elly, take it away.
That's right. I'm brand new to writing. I'm just really excited to get my career kicked off this way. So I'm Elly. I am a wife and mom and educator from Central Kentucky. I have been reading and writing my whole life, but never really thought that a novel was a possibility until I heard Tricia pitch the Sunrise opportunity on Avid Readers, and I was like, oh, that really sounds exactly like what I need. So I was so excited to get the call from her that I won one of the spots. So I'm just, the process has been wonderful, and I've learned so much. And it's kind of hard to start a new thing at 45, but I'm doing it anyway.
That's awesome. And Christen, you've known Tricia for quite a while, but it's a blind audition, right?
Yes, it was completely blind. And she had actually told me about it. I don't know, it was on one of our many trips. And she was like, you should try out. I was like, no, I'm not going to try out. I don't write Amish fiction. And I actually took it all the way up until like the day before or the day of the deadline. And finally I was just like, okay, I have an idea. I'll see what happens. And so it was like an hour before like the deadline, and I submitted everything. And now here we are.
That's awesome. So, and tell us a little bit about your background, because I know you as like a marketing guru, but you also write and you're a mom and you do all the things.
Yeah. So I have been a VA for 11 and a half years. I started when my second son was like 2 months old. So I've been working with authors for about 11 years. I live in a small town with my husband, and I now have 3 kids. And yeah.
That's awesome. And now you're kicking off your writing career.
Yeah.
And Tricia, you and I were just talking about how we've known each other since I had 2 kids, and I now have 4. And I think you had 3 when we met, and you now have like 15.
I have 10. Yeah. We've just added children.
Yeah, exactly. But when I say Christen knows it all, you really do it all. So tell people a little bit, because I can't assume everybody knows you. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Tricia Goyer. I have over 80 books published. I need to sit down and count. Most of them are fiction, but I also write parenting and marriage books for teens and kids. I love speaking at conferences. I have a couple podcasts, and people say, how do you do it all? Well, Christen is my virtual assistant for a long time, so she helps me with it. But I love writing. I love co-writing. And Kara, we have written, how many books have we written together?
It's gotta be
like
at least
5 or 6, 7. Yeah,
at least 5 or 6, because we did some in Martha's Vineyard and the Sugar Creek Amish, which is hilarious because I said I would never write Amish. Famous last words.
I just pull people into the Amish world.
You do. And then where treetops glisten. So I mean, there's been at least 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So
and so I just love helping writers, connecting with writers, and so that Sunrise became an awesome opportunity where, if people aren't familiar with it, people get a tryout to write part of my series. And my Big Sky Amish series is my best-selling series. I think besides Still Waters has about 70,000 copies sold. So a lot of people love the characters. And so we're just adding new stories. And we had 26 people try out. And it's a blind audition, and there's a score sheet. So it's like story idea, voice, dialogue. It's, so it's very clear. We go over the mechanics and how well we like what they do. There's 3 of us. And when I saw Christen's, I'm like, this might be Christen's. I don't know. But again, you're going over how well is the writing? How well is the idea? How did they handle dialogue? So it's a lot of different components. And Elly and Christen rose to the top, and then we were able to go and meet with the publisher, Susie May Warren, and brainstorm our ideas. So that was super fun. And then we sent them away to write. And that was, an exciting and a hard thing, because all of a sudden they're entering my world, and I'm like, okay, this is how things are. And so it's a challenge enough to write a book, but also they're having to write it according to my novels and my world and my characters. And so they had to learn a lot to be able to do that.
So here's a question for y'all, because one of the things that I think is kind of fun about the Sunrise world of writing is you do a brainstorming retreat together. So a lot of them, it seems like, tend to be down like at Susie's cottage in Florida or beach house. But did you guys go to Montana? Did you go like up to Montana Amish country, or where did you guys go for yours?
I wish. We went to Branson, Missouri, because it was centrally located, and also Kate Angelo offered to come and cook for us. So we're like, okay, that sounds good. And it's cheaper to get to than Montana. And so we met there, brainstorms, but there's an Amish community near there. And so we drove up in my big 12-passenger van and went and checked out the Amish there. And we met a guy and talked to him for a while. And so we got to connect with Amish, but it wasn't in Montana.
So Elly, what's one of the things that surprised you as you started diving into this world? Because it's kind of, you were diving into two worlds. You're diving into the Amish world, and you're diving into the world that Tricia created. So what was most surprising, I guess, for you as you entered those worlds?
Probably there is so much variation in Amish societies. What's okay in one community is not okay in another. I've read a lot of Amish fiction, so I kind of had some ideas in my head of things that might work. And then, Tricia knows the folks in Montana, so she knows what actually is accurate. So I kind of had to shift some expectations. But, it was really interesting to learn about, maybe a more progressive Amish community versus the more strict ones.
That's excellent. And I think that that's one of the things that can be really interesting about Amish. I know when I started working with Tricia, and just having read some of them, you think that it would be like, oh, if it's kind of this uniform, all of them are the same, but they're very locally guided and kind of determined. And so that's different from a lot of denominations and religious organizations. So Christen, what's one of the things that surprised you as you stepped into this Amish world?
That I was actually writing Amish. I, unlike Elly, hadn't read a lot of Amish fiction before I got the contract to write Amish. In fact, I hadn't read any. So as soon as I got the contract, I did read the Big Sky series, which, from working with Tricia for so many years, I was very familiar with already. But I think I would have to agree with Elly. It was interesting to find out that there was so many different elements to like the different Amish communities, whether they were strict or not strict or so on.
Yeah, and I would be like you. Like when we started writing the Sugar Creek Amish together, I had always said, I will never write a bonnet book. And then I think we wrote 4 or 5. And I was like, okay, I have learned never say never, because that's when God starts smiling and going, okay, we'll see how that goes for you. So what was, if you were to say that there is like one big thing you learned from working with Tricia, what would that be? So for example, one of the ways that Tricia and I first connected was on her Spanish Civil War series, where I guess I would be kind of like a beta reader, maybe. Is that a good way to phrase it, Tricia? Where as she was writing the chapters, I would go and read them and kind of do like a line edit kind of thing on them. And so it was real fascinating to watch how she wrote and see how she created the story. And it's very different from my process, but it was a gift as at that point, really young novelist to see how someone who was further along the road put together a story. So in that kind of context, what's one of the takeaways that you got from working with a very experienced novelist like Tricia, who's intentionally mentoring you as you work on this series? So Christen, I'll start with you this time.
working with Tricia is amazing, both in like everyday life and also as an author. And she just has so much wisdom, and she's been at this for, I mean, 80 plus books. So just being able to like, you freaking out and she is able to calm you down and like, it's okay, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be great. And so that was one of the biggest things, I think.
Yeah, I love that. And how about for you, Elly?
Oh, definitely talking me down off the ledge when I'm like, I'm going to delete everything that I've written and start all over. That, once a week, I felt that way. I really feel like she's taught me to trust my instinct on what I want, where I feel like the story needs to go. Because sometimes I would kind of try to force something into the story that didn't really fit what I had originally planned to do. And sometimes I would change it because it made more sense. But when I really had that gut feeling, like there was a major, I considered a major shift to my second draft. And it was like, I knew that it wasn't really right. And she kind of let me talk through it. And then I realized, oh yeah, okay, I'm okay. I do know what story I want to tell. So she's very good at helping you learn to trust your instincts, but also to telling you the truth about it when something needs to go.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's such a valuable part of the process, because when you're learning, you don't know, you don't have that developed set of instincts. So Tricia, why did you decide that this was something you wanted to do? Because it's a lot of work to come alongside newbies and say, okay, I'm going to trust you with my characters, with my setting, and guide you through this process. So why did you decide that's how you wanted to invest some of your time right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think there are so many possibilities, but my readers have been saying, can we have more Big Sky books? We want to know what happened to Ben and Mariana. They love the community, Annie at the general store, and Edgar and these Uncle Ike, like these characters are real to them. And so this became a way like, okay, great. I can give you more stories in this world. And I have other people that are helping me write them. So I don't have to do complete drafts. And I also wrote, I wrote the first one in the series. So it helped. It's kind of like the book 4 after the first 3 Big Sky. So we have more resolution with Ben and Mariana. But then we have, it's the same community, but these different voices too. So like Kristen's book, her characters are fun. And I think there's more, because her main character is a social media influencer that ends up in Montana in this Amish home. And then, there's Ruben, who's the handsome Amish guy. So, but hers is more fun and there's this humor. And Elly, her character, and I just, Lavina and, Thomas, and I just love their story. It's more, there's this heartfelt element of these people with this broken past that just like tugs at your heart. But also she has a character who is an English little girl who is 5 years old, so she's not Amish, that puts a lot of spice in it. So it was so fun to see that, yes, I have my familiar characters, but I think my readers, like thinking of my readers, knowing that they want stuff in this community already, but then I'm able to mentor people, which I love, have an online community called Write That Book where I mentor people. So that's my heart anyway, to mentor writers, and then to put these new voices with this fun kind of twist in the familiar was just an awesome way to give readers just these great books that I know they're going to love, that they're going to be so happy that I'm already having people tell me they're so happy that there's more in the community. And so these are just the first 3. Mine comes out February 28th, and then Kristen's comes out next month, and Elly's in August. But next year we have 4. And so it's like, here you go, readers. Here is the community you love, and you're just going to love these stories.
That's awesome. So will you be adding other writers, or are the 3 of you doing all of those books?
They're doing, so I'm doing 1 more, Elly's doing 1 more, and Kristen's doing 2 more. Because we're just like, okay, Kristen, here you go.
That's awesome. Congratulations, ladies. So what comes first for you? The plot or the characters? And maybe in this series, it was the characters to get started, but then as you were looking at expanding from 3 to 7, was it plot? Was it characters? So Elly, what was it for you with that second book?
For me, it was characters. Just kind of thinking about who might live in this world and what might happen, what kind of problems they could encounter. But it was definitely character first.
How about you, Christen?
For me, it was characters as well. I was really nervous going in because it was for 2 books, the contract, and I was like, I only have an idea for one. But when writing this first book, some characters came through, and I was like, oh well, I have to write these stories next. So it's
The
definitely
characters popped off the page. I'm just gonna interrupt her to say there's 2 characters that you just love them in her first book. And so if she hadn't said, I want to write about Penny is one of them and Ford is the other. But if she hadn't said that she wanted to write about them, I'd been like, no, I don't care. You need to write about these people, because they just kind of like made themselves known on the page that they want their own book. So yeah, for sure.
And that's always fun. I mean, that's just magical when the characters, they're supposed to be secondary and kind of in the background, and they step forward and they're like, hello, I need a book. And it's the best when that starts to happen. You're like, okay, now what do we do with these characters?
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about your main characters from these books, do you think you'd get along with them? Would they be someone you'd want to hang out with? Tricia, you've been hanging out with them for a while.
I've been hanging out with them. I'm like, yes, I love them. They are very real. So in the first book, Ben and Mariana, and then, all the familiar people, Uncle Ike and Mariana's dad and Annie from the Sword, they're all there. And it was like going home again. I love going back to Montana. We lived there for 15 years. And the series was like going back home again with these characters. And the next one I'm writing, I mentioned them before, Uncle Ike and Annie are going to get their own book. People have been waiting a while. And it's fun now because I'm getting more letters from readers, and they're naming other characters. What about this person? What about this person? So I don't know. Maybe we'll continue. But yeah, I just love these people.
How about you, Elly?
Oh, yeah, with Lavina, absolutely. And what was funny is really when I started to write her, she was more harsh and bitter. And I just couldn't do that to her because she really had such a good heart. So I kind of turned her into this helper, this really, someone who could just really come along beside and be a friend to everyone. So I'm very pleased with that change, because in the beginning, I just felt so sorry for her because she was so cranky all the time. But now we've kind of smoothed those rough edges out.
And how about you, Christen?
I think so. Lila has a rough start at the start of the book, but as it goes on, and I think she would be fun to hang out with.
Well, and I can imagine a social media influencer plopped down in the middle of Amish. There's all kinds of potential for lots of disaster and hilarity to happen. That one sounds like a lot of fun. So what's your schedule like when you're writing? I know that all of us have day jobs. Most of us have families. So that means that's going to kind of interrupt and change the rhythm. But when you're under deadline, how do you find time? What does it look like when you're trying to get those words on the screen? Christen, I'll start with you.
I have a bad habit about procrastinating until I can't procrastinate any longer. And then I just kind of freak out and write all the time. So generally I fit it into the cracks between everything else, being a mom, working full time. But yeah, morning lately has been the perfect time to sit down and get a lot of words written before I get my day started.
That's awesome. How about you, Elly?
Mornings, absolutely. I work full time as well, and my kids are teenagers, so some of them can transport themselves. So that's a little bit smooth some of that out, but it's still really busy. I procrastinate too. And so there will go entire weeks that work takes over and not much writing gets done. And then I'll kick it into gear and actually get some writing done. I have Saturday blocked out completely this week, and I don't usually do that, but I'm going to write all day Saturday. So just have to put it on the calendar and promise myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tricia, you're a morning bird.
Yeah, I love getting up in the morning and getting my quiet time in and then writing, because I homeschool, so I let my kids sleep in a little bit. So that's always great. But the amazing thing was, I have my deadlines, And then like, oh wait, Kristen's deadline's coming up. I need to read through her chapters and give feedback. And so, initially they would send me like the first chapter and we talked through that. Then the first 3 chapters and we talked through that. And it's like kind of editing as we're going along just to make sure they're heading in the right direction. The voice sounds like it'll fit into my world. And then they had sent me half the book and then I'm like having to look at that. So it was like, oh yeah, like I don't only have to think about my deadlines. I have to think about Kristen's deadlines and Elly's deadlines. And so, sometimes their books would be sitting in my inbox for like a couple weeks and then I finally get a chance. But they all got done and they turned out so good. Like I am so proud of them. They put in so much hard work and the stories are awesome. So I'm excited that my readers get to read them. And I think they're just going to create their own readers that are going to follow them. And that's an exciting thing to see, that people are like, oh my goodness, Elly Gilbert and Christen Krumm are some of my favorite authors. And it's just going to be cool to see that I got to help launch that and that I can see them just flourishing. I mean, I think when other publishers like read their books, they're going to be like calling them up. And so yeah, they're going to be busy.
That would be awesome. Yeah, that would be great. So here's something that I'm terrible at 40 books in. How do you celebrate when you reach the end? Do you have a way that you like celebrate? Woohoo, I made the deadline. Or are you going to celebrate when the book actually releases? Because I need some ideas.
I am horrible about celebrating. I try to do like when I unbox it, I try to like, yay, look at this. I'll try to maybe go out to dinner with my family. But sometimes it's like, hey guys, look, I got a new book out. They're like looking up from their phones. Great. And then they just go on with life. And I think, I mean, it's interesting that it's so common that mom has a new book out. Sometimes I forget to tell them, but yeah, Kara, we need to like, I don't know, let's go on a cruise and celebrate our next books or something. Let's do it.
No, not a cruise. Let's go to England. Let's go do something like that. Let's go research our next, our next novella collection.
Yeah, let's do that.
I think that would be great. Elly, do you have ideas on how you might celebrate, or did you celebrate turning in your first book?
Oh, I celebrated every time I turned something in. Usually it was with a nice long nap because I had been, cramming the book in and not treating myself very well. But when it was over, when I actually finished my whole first draft, I'd sent it in and my husband and I went out to dinner and it was like, oh. And then of course I thought about something I should have put in the book and I was like, I wonder if it's too late. Can I make that change?
That always happens.
It always happens, I guess. But when I do plan on doing kind of a big to-do when my book comes out at my church here in Frankfurt, and then maybe my hometown, which is in Eastern Kentucky, my librarian growing up was very excited because I was, a frequent flyer at the library. And so he kind of said, I think you should have a book signing at the library. And I was like, oh, that would be so full circle. So maybe a little something there too.
That would be so fun. Christen, how about you?
I am terrible at celebrating. And with On the Golden Cliffs, my book will release on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday I'll leave and go on the road with Tricia. So
we will celebrate. We'll figure something out.
Okay, we'll celebrate. So we're gonna celebrate something that week.
Because I think it's important. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. And I'm terrible at it. I'm absolutely terrible. I think it took about 35 books before my husband was like, oh, here's some flowers. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet, But it's kind of like that, oh, mom has another book out. But it's the culmination of a lot of work and time and sacrifice. And so I need to get better at it. So I'm going to keep asking until I come up with it. That's it. But Tricia, I think you and I need to grab a couple people and go do a research trip.
Yeah. Well, another thing I want to do is this book has to deal with outfitting in the Bob Marshall Wilderness. So like people go up for weeks at a time on horses, the course trains, and so Rebecca, who's my friend that lives up there, she helped me research a ton. So maybe we should go on a outfitting trip in the mountains of Montana. Like we could totally do that too.
That could be kind of fun, as long as there's running water.
No, there's no running water. Oh, there's creeks. The creeks are running. We can catch our fish.
I'm going to say that. Okay, so here's the last question. What are the essential characteristics of heroes that you write? Christen.
Oh gosh, you would have to start with me. Essential characteristics of heroes.
It's such a good question.
It is. It is. I think I would have to say that the characters that I write, they always have some kind of redeeming quality, maybe, and growth, and making them as human as possible. Because I think a lot of times when we're writing a hero on a page, we kind of make them unrealistic. And so I think giving them characteristics and redeeming qualities that make them more human.
I love that. How about you, Elly?
I like heroes that are that have a soft spot somewhere. You know, they're tough and they're strong, but they have that soft spot, that little vulnerability. With Thomas in this book, it's his niece Emily is his soft spot. So I really like that, and so that's definitely, when I read, that is something I really enjoy.
I love that. And kids are such a great way to find that soft spot. So love that. And Tricia, how about you?
Well, I agree with both those answers, but I think also something swoon worthy, something just the way they just love people, or something that they do that's like, oh, I just need to meet him. That would just be so amazing. And I always will find a photo of the character and just picture them and how the heroine is going to interact and react with this wonderful guy. And Ben is a rock star, and so he is definitely swoon worthy to a lot of people, but he has a special connection with Mariana, who's very simple, and just shows that his roots are wanting to be in a home with a simple life and a family, even though his music's well known. And so it's the balance of, yes, look at him, but also that again, like they were saying, that tenderness and that real natural personality tied all in together.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so much fun to reconnect with Tricia, and then also be able to introduce y'all to Christen and to Elly. And I think you will really enjoy getting to read their books and step into Amish country up in Montana, because it's a really, I remember reading the Big Sky series when Tricia first released it, and it was fascinating because I hadn't thought about the Amish being up in Montana, but it was such a unique and special community. So I'm looking forward to returning to it. I've got the first 2 books on my Kindle, so I'll be doing that very soon. But thank you again for joining me today. It was so fun to connect with all 3 of you.
Thank you, Kara.
Thank you.